And we are live. Anyways, hello everybody. Welcome to yet another video. Um, this time we're gonna be talking about the Daytona, or rather Monday doubleheader with Daytona 500 and also the Xfinity opener. The busiest Monday in NASCAR actually, because not only did we have a Daytona 500 on Monday, we had the Daytona 500 and the Xfinity race both held on a Monday. Probably this is the first time this has happened since, funnily enough, the last year's Coca-Cola 600. Now that if I recall correctly, the last two times this has happened, it's been both on Crown Jewel races. So funny how that sounds. So, anyways, let's check here. I don't think there's anybody on stream right now. Yeah, because I'm streaming this at like 3:30 in the morning, but it's okay. As with all of the other streams, you can always go back and rewatch them after they are done. So anyways, let's start with what happened on Saturday, because as expected, the forecast didn't look promising. If that little, misty rain was all that was any indication, if you know the truck race, towards the end of stage 2, or at the very end of stage 2, right at the end, there was a bit of light mist, some rain on the track. Fortunately, the truck race was able to go on a schedule, actually ended in overtime, so but it was a sign of things to come. So on Saturday, as expected, the forecast did not look promising. It was raining all morning long, and there were even talks about qualifying being cancelled, as well as the Xfinity and Cup practice. Practice was eventually cancelled. Saturday practice for the Cup Series, practice for Xfinity. At least the Cup cars, they managed to, practice on Friday, as well as the Xfinity cars as well. This was just final practice. But at around 2 to 3 p.m., early afternoon, Mother Nature, it stopped raining. Mother Nature gave NASCAR a chance, so they took it, and they held Xfinity qualifying on the spot. And they also announced that they will move the Xfinity race up to 4:30 p.m. From its original start time, which I believe it was 5:30, 6:30. No, not 6:30, 6 p.m.-ish. Safe to say, the clash created a new precedent for NASCAR being more proactive and not waiting until, Mother Nature happened, which is actually good. We saw it with them moving up the ARCA race to Friday at almost midnight after the truck race. And, just like the precedent they set with the clash, qualifying was pretty much condensed. We didn't have this 2-round qualifying that we're used to seeing. It was single-round qualifying, old school fashion. Everyone qualifies. The fastest guy gets the pole. The slowest guys just go home, DNQ. So RCR, they swept the front rows as we've grown accustomed to on these super speedways. But it wasn't Austin Hill leading the charge this time. Rather, his new teammate, Jesse Love, the guy that Austin Hill was hyping up after the whole Creed debacle last year at Martinsville. He said, I'm so glad Sheldon Creed is gone. I can't wait for Jesse Love to be my teammate. It's actually Jesse Love who gets the pole in his Xfinity Series debut as well, which is pretty impressive. Even with RCR power engines and being good on super speedways, the fact that he beat Austin Hill in qualifying his first ever start, it's still impressive as hell. So definitely shout out to him. Unfortunately, though, Xfinity qualifying will be all the action we will get for Saturday and Sunday, for that matter, because as soon as qualifying ended, it started raining again. And with the forecast not looking promising for Saturday, for the rest of the afternoon leading into the evening, or Sunday for that matter, NASCAR decided to postpone the Xfinity race to Monday at 11 a.m. and the Daytona 500 to Monday afternoon after the Xfinity race at 4:30 p.m. So we didn't get to see any action after Saturday Xfinity qualifying. that would be all the action we would get for like 48 hours. And I say 48 hours because on Monday morning it was still raining. So the Xfinity race was postponed again to Monday night after the Daytona 500. So it was like at 10 p.m. ish my time. That would be like 9 p.m. Eastern time for you guys, because you guys are like because this is without daylight saving time, by the way. It was just an absolute. It looked like an absolute disaster of a weekend until then, and even after NASCAR, you know, they had done like everything they could. Just Mother Nature just would not give them a chance. But NASCAR, they actually did the right call. We actually managed to get something done on Saturday, which was Xfinity qualifying. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. And thankfully, on Monday, after the rainy morning, the rain had stopped by the afternoon, and we finally got to see some action under clear skies too. You know, just classic Florida weather. Could be pouring rain a moment, but then an hour later it could be sunny with clear blue skies. What got me a bit upset as well was the fact that the track was, you know, almost like dried up around like the early afternoon, 1 or 2 p.m. You know, we also had a funny moment with the jet dryers, a little bit of a throwback to 2012, but I don't know the logistics behind, you know, pre-race ceremonies and stuff like that, but I'm a bit surprised NASCAR was not proactive on this one instance, given the precedent that they had set for the last 2 weeks. But then again, they had just recently announced Xfinity will be pushed back to like Monday night after the 500. And you know, again, I don't know what the logistics are for like Daytona 500 pre-race ceremonies. I know it's the biggest race of the year, so I'm just saying the track was pretty raceable. It looked pretty raceable to me after like 1 p.m. after the rain just lifted and we had like clear blue skies. Like 1 p.m., 2 p.m. we could have just put the cars on the track and let them race. But and then again, that's just me. Anyways, we got Daytona 500 finally went underway. Joe Logano and Michael McDowell, they led the field to the green. Remember, with Ryan Blaney, Daniel Hendrick, Kyle Busch, and Noah Gragson going to the rear, as we already discussed previously in the duels, as well as Cas Gralla. He got an engine change during qualifying due to, you know, the issue that with the shifting issue causing him to blow up the engine. And William Byron also went out to a backup car in the end after his dual race. So in the end, 6 guys ended up going to the rear. And just 5 laps in, we will get some early action going on with Ross Chastain leading a 3rd lane way outside, picking up Brad Keselowski and John Hunter Nemechek along the way. And here I was thinking, yeah, it's a bit too early for that, but as long as they keep it clean, that's all that matters. That did not happen, because off of turn 4, heading into the trioval, it hadn't even been like a lap. They hadn't even run a single lap 3 wide. This was like, you know, half a lap, because the 3rd lane will form on the backstretch. Keselowski strikes again with a push on John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter makes contact with Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton spins, collects Carson Hocevar, and then the 2 cars go through the trioval grass on the front stretch, and then they go back up on the track, collecting a couple of cars in the back of the field. Cas Gralla, Austin Dillon, Jimmy Johnson, Ryan Preece. Only a 6-car incident, but a lot of damage to Burton, Gralla, and Hocevar, who they DNF early. It's also the 2nd time Brad Keselowski push leads into an accident. I'm not saying he was at fault, I'm just pointing that out, because if you remember in the dual race, Keselowski pushing Kyle Busch into William Byron is what in part led to the accident that, you know, ended with another hard hit for Ryan Blaney. But as we also saw in the truck race, cautions like this are an opportunity for most of the field to top off on fuel, but and that is what everyone did, or like most of the field did. Only Bell, David Reagan, Blaney, Hemrick, Stenhouse, they stayed out. Byron got a vehicle interference penalty after issues getting into his pit stall. he had to back up, and I believe he interfered with Alex Bowman's pit crew. He got a penalty for that. Anyways, restart. The field settles down for quite a while, running double file, led by Bell on the outside, Blaney on the inside. Now, something I noticed that caught my attention, with everyone just, a bigger pack, the inside lane was able to stay even with the outside lane as opposed to the dual races, where like the outside lane was the way to go if you wanted to advance your position. Of course, some of that had to do with driver settling down after a lap 6 crash. Also, saving fuel to try and extend their fuel window for as much as they could, but still. Also, another thing to note, because of all of this fuel saving throughout the early parts of the race, because of stage racing, AJ Allmendinger got a penalty for a restart violation. He made a pass-through penalty, and yet, despite losing the draft, because of all of this fuel-saving shenanigans, he was able to turn laps faster by himself compared to the lead draft at one point. Like, he was on some NASCAR Heat easy mode bullshit. I know this was around the time the guys, again, like I said, they started saving fuel, but still. Just a display of NASCAR's allergy to horsepower nowadays. The fact that Allmendinger was able to turn this didn't happen all the time, and Allmendinger just didn't even come close to getting to catching the lead draft. He was like half a lap down. But still, the fact that Allmendinger was able to turn laps faster at one point than the rest of the leaders, again, some of that had to do with them saving fuel, but again, also, I take that as a display of NASCAR's allergy to horsepower nowadays. Take it with a grain of salt. But anyways, by lap 32, as the field started saving fuel, coming to the green flag pit stops, the top 4 cars break away for a while. Those being Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Daniel Hemrick, and Joey Logano. This happens for a while until the outside lane creeps up to the top once again, led by Austin Cindric. And Logano and Blaney, seeing the energy, they link up with them, they move outside, and just like that, it's a Team Penske 1-2-3 with their new alliance mate Michael McDowell in 4th. And that was pretty much the theme for the entire race. The Fords were always, one step ahead, either speed-wise or teamwork-wise or strategy-wise. I always felt like the Fords were superior. And the broadcast, the broadcast booth did a good job pointing out that all 3 manufacturers, they felt balanced at some point. But from my point of view, I feel like the Fords, they had the advantage in terms of in terms of speed, strategy, teamwork. It also helped that Joey Logano had the car to beat for pretty much the entire race, so there's that too. And this went on for a couple of laps, at least until the drivers who did not pit on the first caution, the Penske guys, Hemrick, Bell, McDowell, Keselowski, those guys just pitted. It wasn't just Ryan Blaney, Hemrick, and Christopher Bell. Logano and Cindric came down too, as well as Michael McDowell and Brad Keselowski. And then one lap later, Chris Buescher also pitted. And then the rest of the field stays out for a couple of laps, trying to extend, their fuel window. During this moment, we have like a battle for the lead because Blaney, Bell, Hemrick, like those guys, they pitted. We have a battle for the lead. Elliott in the end emerges as the leader with help from Kyle Busch. But for a while, it looked like Michael McDowell. We had Michael McDowell, Josh Berry, and even Denny Hamlin in the mix as well. Some new players coming in. But anyways, when the guys who pit cycle back, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, and Daniel Hemrick, they end up losing the draft due to their pit stops being longer due to waiting on fuel for a few more seconds compared to the other guys, and they get lapped down, as well as McDowell. And McDowell was just, he just had a this is the moment where McDowell just dropped out of contention. He just had a He had to make an unscheduled pit stop due to a gear shifter issue. He reported that he had lost a fifth gear. He could not get it to fifth gear. And this was pretty apparent later on in the race when they just went by him. And McDowell was like noticeably slower than them. Even in the draft, he was like noticeably slower. He was just unable to keep up there. Yeah, he had clearly lost fifth gear. He ended up, I believe he ended up like top 35-ish. I don't even know if he cracked the top 35, but he finished multiple laps down. I think he probably did, now that I think about it, because there was a big accident at the end that we're going to talk about later, but McDowell, he actually, I believe he could have actually picked up a couple of positions and finished like in the 30s, in the low 30s. I'm going to have to double check on that, but when I get there, but still. Pretty tough break for McDowell, considering that he had a very, he looked to have a very fast car, especially with this being the first race of their new front row Penske alliance, the first like points paying race, and it being the Daytona 500. McDowell actually was doing a pretty good job with the Penske guys when he was out front with running in front with them, so it really sucks. Also, what really sucked, at least for a moment, was staying out on lap 6. It really came back to bite those guys, because for a moment I thought those guys were gonna be lapped, and they eventually were. At least for a moment, everyone eventually pitted in the end, and those guys eventually managed to get their laps back, either by wave around or by waiting on the pit cycle or by way of a free pass. But for a moment, Ryan Blaney, Bell, Daniel Hendrick, yeah, I thought it was a really bad strategy, because them staying longer for waiting on fuel longer actually caused them to lose the draft. Especially Blaney, because due to him needing more fuel, he lost the draft. He was unable to catch up with Logano and Hendrick, and he was really frustrated. But anyways, the field slowly settled into single file. The choo-choo train, as NASCAR Twitter likes to refer to that single file action to. But then on lap 55, most of the field pits for fuel. Most of the Chevys come first, followed by the Toyotas, and then the Fords. Most of them being from Stewart-Haas Racing, they stay for a while longer, but then they eventually pit. Now, something important to note. All of the Fords who pitted took 4 tires, with the only exception being Justin Haley, who took fuel only. In the end, only David Reagan and Ryan Preece, they stayed out, running on like 50% throttle, with the lead draft gaining 5 seconds a lap on them. Of course, it predictably doesn't work, and the leaders eventually catch up to them, and they cycle back to the lead. This hands the lead back to Kyle Busch, but with the 4 Hendrick cars lining up behind him to end the stage, there was just no way he would hold on. Like, the moment I saw Larson, Bowman, and Byron ready to line up right behind, or actually, I believe Byron was ahead. Yeah, I saw Byron ahead, and then I saw Elliott, Larson, and Bowman lined up behind him. I just thought to myself, yeah, there's no way Kyle Busch is winning the stage now. He actually did his best, and he managed to hold off Byron coming to like the last lap of the stage, but he was unable to hold off the other 3. You can block one of them, but you cannot block all 4 of them. So Chase Elliott in the end wins the stage after Larson tried to take the stage win for himself, but Chastain decided to stay with Elliott and push him to the flag. So in the end, Larson has to settle for 2nd, Chastain gets 3rd, and then Bowman and Byron round out the top 5. So it's an all Chevy top 5, with Hendrick putting all 4 of their cars in the top 5 for stage points. And on the day of their 40th anniversary too, because on this day in 1984, Hendrick Motorsports made their first ever NASCAR start as a team with the number 5 car that was driven by Jeff Bodine. And back then, the team was named All Star Racing. It wasn't called Hendrick Motorsports. Um, but yeah, 40 years later, winningest organization in NASCAR, more championships, with the most championships in NASCAR history as well. And now, just all four of their guys now on their 40th anniversary day, just in prime position for massive stage points. None of the Fords gained stage points. There were only the only Toyotas that gained stage points were Hamlin in 7th, Bubba Wallace in 8th, Truex in 9th, and then Suarez in 10th. Kyle Busch, he actually managed to finish 6th despite losing the lead to all of the Hendrick cars. But anyways, the leaders pit. Everyone pits for fuel as expected. Only Keselowski, Herbst, and Daniel Hendrick, they stay out so that they can pit a lap later and avoid the chaos. Also important to note, David Reagan and Ryan Preece, they pitted as soon as the stage ended when the pits were not open yet. They started at the tail end of the field. In this stage break as well, in this pit sequence to end the stage break, Tyler Reddick and John Hunter also had issues exiting pit road. Both of their cars stalled, leaving both of them sitting there for quite a while. They both got it refired though, so no big deal. John Hunter did get a penalty though, as did Kyle Busch too, for too many men over the wall. So then we move on to stage 2, and just like in stage 1, the third line from way outside forms early in the stage. This time led by Joey Logano, Chase Briscoe, and Justin Haley, but only this time they actually managed to go all the way and take the lead. And not only do they take the lead, they also keep it clean. Stage 2 goes green all the way, as a matter of fact. That third lane actually manages to take all of the momentum away from the top 2 lanes as well, causing Berry, Hamlin, and Briscoe, who came down to be with his teammate, to drop back. Briscoe was running second, but he tried to make a run with his teammate Josh Berry, who was leading the inside lane. But because all of the energy was like on the outside and middle lanes, the inside lane eventually dissolved, and everyone just those guys that were on the inside lane started dropping back. Things do settle back to the 2 lanes again. Logano leading on the outside with Todd Gilliland leading the inside lane. Inside lane, quote unquote, because they were on like more of a middle lane path right there. It wasn't like an inside outside lane thing. It was more like an outside middle lane type of thing. But anyways, Todd Gilliland, Logano led the outside with Todd Gilliland leading the inside, trying to make a run for the lead with help from Bubba Wallace and eventually Martin Truex Jr. He does eventually take the lead on lap 93 after a big push from the 19, and he immediately goes outside, clear of Logano. And this leaves the inside lane pretty thin, leaving only like the inside lane led by Toyota, Martin Truex, and Tyler Reddick, against the dominant outside lane led by Todd Gilliland, Logano, and Justin Haley. All Fords basically. It's still the same, however. The outside lane still prevails, even with more cars increasingly dropping down to the inside to the point like the field evens out again. But then, eventually the top 3 Fords, they drop down to the inside, and this leaves the outside open for Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, and Ryan Preece to try and take the lead away just as green flag pit stops are coming up. For stage 2, the green flag pit sequence happens, so lap 111. Half the field pits for fuel. It was like half the field, honestly. It was a pretty big group. The first group that pitted featured guys like Joey Logano, Todd Gilliland, Martin Truex, Ryan Preece, Chris Buescher, let's see who else, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick. Jimmy Johnson, still in the race. He was involved from that early wreck. He got damaged, but he fell multiple laps down because of the damage. He was able to run the rest of the race. I believe he was running at the end, like at the finish line, but he was like multiple laps down. The moment he got involved in that crash on lap 6, he was no longer a factor. But anyways, John Hunter, Josh Berry, Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs. Yeah, all of those names I mentioned were among the guys that pitted during that during lap 111. They were like the first group to pit during stage 2. John Hunter spun Josh Berry entering his pit stall. The 4th car has to pit backwards, and he loses the draft because of it, trying to get it straightened out. Ty Gibbs also loses the draft because he overshoots his pit box and loses a ton of time. And Ryan Preece also loses the draft due to getting penalized for speeding on pit road. A few laps later, the next group pits. This time it's a much smaller group. Kyle Busch, Shane Smith, Daniel Suarez, David Reagan, and Stenhouse were among the main names of that group. And then the third group comprised of Blaney, Cindric, Chastain, Corey LaJoie, and the Hendrick drivers. So I guess you could say like 50% of the lead pack pitted on was the first group to pit, and then the other two groups were like 25-25. So in the end, Kyle Larson, after all of the packs, all of the little groups merged together into the big pack again, Kyle Larson cycles back to the lead after all of the groups merge. Chase Elliott second and Ryan Blaney third, and the race for the stage is on. The third lane is formed again, led by Kyle Busch and William Byron. And just like last time, that outside lane, it takes away all of the momentum from the inside lane to do all that side draft. And Kyle Larson is sent towards the back of the pack, leaving Kyle Busch and Austin Cindric to battle the two, leading the two upper lanes. The inside lane attempts a bit of a comeback with Christopher Bell and Stenhouse, but it's just bad timing at that point as they approach lap traffic in the form of Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry, and they realize they won't be able to go anywhere as they need room for those lap cars to, to maneuver so that they can, let the leaders by. There was no way they were gonna take it for a while. That was just outrageous. But anyways, they managed to let the lap cars by, and there was no way they were gonna pick them up because they were gonna lose all of the momentum. Those guys were running way slower than them, so they had no choice but to drop back and lose all of the track position that they had gained, all for the sake of letting those lap guys, letting those lap cars by and just clearing them safely. So, anyways, it looked to be Kyle Busch versus Austin Cindric to end the stage, but then Ryan Blaney made a 3-wide move on Cindric to take the lead, for himself. A similar move to how to the one that Tyler Reddick used on Kyle Larson to win his duo race on Thursday. It was a very similar move, the one that Blaney did on Austin Cindric. He took the lead himself. He took the lead for himself. And Cindric, trying to, not wanting to lose the draft because he was going to get caught in the sucker hole, he blocks the outside lane led by Kyle Busch. And with this, Blaney just has a clear racetrack, and he wins stage 2. It was a really awesome move from the defending champ. He said he was going to help his teammates until the last lap of the stage because, he's got to get the stage points for himself. And I got to say, that was a really smart move. Like, you help your teammates onto the last lap. On the last lap, there are no team orders. You try and go for either the race win or the stage win for yourself. I love that mentality for Blaney. It was a really... he played that move perfectly. So, anyways, Austin Cindric finishes second. Daniel Suarez third. Kyle Busch fourth. Despite getting blocked by Cindric, he manages to get to come out of it with huge stage points. Tyler Reddick 5th, William Byron 6th, Bubba Wallace 7th, Allmendinger, Stenhouse, and Buescher round out the top 10 for stage points. Then we go to pit road. Everyone pits again, this time for fuel and for tires. Like the previous stage break, Brad Keselowski stays out so that he can pit one lap later and avoid the chaos. And David Reagan and John Hunter Nemechek follow his example. Now, Kyle Busch has to pit again due to a loose left front wheel. Thankfully, the wheel doesn't come off as he limps down pit road, so he doesn't get a penalty, thankfully. They get it secured, and even though he loses all track position again, at least he's still in the lead lap. Another guy that's also going to the back is Suarez for an equipment interference penalty. And just like that, we have reached stage 3. And on stage 3, Allmendinger, not Allmendinger, well, the third lane forms again, this time on the inside, led by Allmendinger. And just like in stage 2, that third lane eventually takes the lead with help from Chris Buescher. And now it's the outside lane who has to catch up, as the inside lane is prevailing. It just took all of the energy from that outside lane. But they eventually, the outside lane eventually comes back. And once Allmendinger loses the lead, it just opens the door for Christopher Bell, Corey LaJoie, and Denny Hamlin to battle for the lead. As well as Kyle Busch, who in a matter of in less than 10 laps, he went from the back of the pack to the front. It was just unbelievable. He had a close call with 38 laps to go, though, when he hit the wall trying to squeeze in between Corey LaJoie and Christopher Bell, because he didn't want to, lose the draft. He doesn't have a tire rub, but there's still damage to that car. Nothing significant, though. He's still able to finish with the car in one piece. A few laps after that, though, the inside lane comes alive, and with a couple of lap cars in between Ryan Preece and Josh Berry, Joey Logano takes the lead, taking David Ragan and Keselowski, who was running 30th just a couple of laps ago with him. So, just like Kyle Busch, Keselowski was running at the back of the pack, and now he's up to third, just like that. That inside lane was also led by the Fords, which, like I said, the Fords, to me, they look like the team to beat, simply because they had Joey Logano. And just like Keselowski said it best himself on the radio, he was gonna follow whatever the 22 did, because not only was Joey Logano the car to beat on speed, he was also the car to beat in the draft, and also with pit strategy and how he was able to go in and out of pit road so flawlessly. Great observation from Keselowski, because that's one of the main reasons why Logano was able to always cycle back near the front after those green flag pit cycles. And this final round of pit stops with less than 30 to go, it was a perfect example of that. This time, though, the field was split into smaller groups of 7 to 8 cars max. It was a pretty orderly sequence. I didn't see any. I don't think anybody was penalized during that sequence either. But, anyways, Allmendinger and Shane Smith were the first guys to part of the first. Some of the drivers that pitted in that first group. It was a very small group. The second group was a bit bigger. It was most of the Toyotas, though. Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, Reddick, Truex, John Hunter, Ty Gibbs. Denny Hamlin did not pit with them, though. He actually pitted with the next group, which was him, Kyle Busch, and Justin Haley. And then on the fourth group, it was most of the Fords who pitted, those being David Ragan, Logano, Blaney, Keselowski, Briscoe, Berry, Hendrick, Preece, Gill, and Gregson. Basically all of the Penske, Stewart Haas, and RFK cars, as well as Todd Gilliland. And then the final group was, most of the Chevrolets, Stenhouse, Alfredo, Hendrick, the Hendrick cars, and both the Trackhouse guys. So again, like I said, they all pitted in relatively small groups, and once everyone cycled back to the lead, that's when the battle for the win was on, with Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, and Ricky Stenhouse leading the Fords, led by Logano and Keselowski. Of course, one by one, the Ford started, picking them off until only Chastain was left. And what ensued was some of the best racing I had seen for a Daytona 500 in that Gen 7 era. What I saw from that final pit sequence all the way onto the final 10 to go, that was some awesome racing. The best racing I had seen at the Daytona 500 to end in this Gen 7 era. I just wish it went green the rest of the way, but with the way they were racing, it was pretty clear this was gonna end in only one way, and it eventually did. because from that point forward, the lead became a bit of a revolving door. You know, Chastain, Stenhouse, Suarez, back to Chastain. Everyone was running 3 wide. Again, you knew the big one was going to happen. You know, as much as I wanted this race to end under green, this was not going to end like this. You know, it was only going to be a matter of time. The more laps you run 3 wide, you know, the more chances you are for a big accident to happen. And with all of the pushing and shoving, you know, a bad push was all it took to set off a chain reaction. And that's what actually happened. Because with 9 laps to go, a bad push from Alex Bowman on the backstretch sends Byron into Keselowski, and the ensuing wreck collects most of the field. 18 cars were involved in total. Joey Logano was taken out of the race along with Keselowski, who, by the way, he was my pick to win. So, again, tough break for me again. Ryan Blaney, Daniel Suarez, he almost got through it, but then he got hit by Todd Gilliland and also got damaged from the contacts with Stenhouse. He was out of the race. Tyler Reddick also involved, Ty Gibbs, Denny Hamlin, Truex. I believe Christopher Bell got some damage. Eric Jones, I believe he also got some damage as well. Chase Briscoe, Chris Buescher, Gragson, Kyle Larson, I believe he got a bit of that. Daniel Hendrick, Anthony Alfredo, Eric Jones, among the drivers. Chase Elliott, I don't know how he got through that. If you watch the replay, which I believe you have by this point, you would know that was a wild save. Not really a wild save, but it's honestly just crazy how Elliott managed to get through there, because there was a spinning car, which I believe was Todd Gilliland. I don't know if it was Suarez or Todd Gilliland, but I know there was a car spinning just right in front of Chase Elliott. It was just inches in front of him, and then he avoided, and then he managed to barely just avoid getting clipped by Eric Jones. And speaking of barely getting clipped, Ross Chastain, if you look at the replay, he would have almost gotten involved in it if it was just like, you know, half a car length, you know, by just inches, he was able to, you know, steer clear of the accident. Because look at the angle. If you look at the angle that Byron hit Keselowski and the angle that Keselowski spun, Chastain was almost. If Chastain wasn't like clear of Keselowski, if like Keselowski wasn't Chastain's bumper or even close to it, Chastain would have ended up being spun out too from the lead and maybe crashed out. So, again, it was a very close call by Chastain as well, which just goes to show, even when you're leading, you're not, and the wreck is happening behind you, you still may not be safe from the big one. Just saying. So, there was a red flag, 15 minutes, and then the race restarted with 4 laps to go, with Ross Chastain and William Byron leading both lanes. Of course, the 1 car being on the outside, 24 car being on the inside. Byron gets the lead with help from Austin Cindric, but coming to the white flag, Chastain tries to force his way through a gap between Byron and Cindric, trying to force a 3 wide. It obviously doesn't work, and the ensuing wreck collects the 2, who also may have gotten some help from LaJoie. I know, like, I know, like, if you see the replay, like, Cindric was getting shoved by LaJoie and was trying to get back to the track because he was like almost on the apron. That combined with Chastain coming down to make his move between him and Byron, the 2 of them just spin. And the ensuing wreck collects David Reagan as well. The wreck was very similar to the lap 6 wreck with Harrison Burton and Carson Hocevar, where the 2 guys just spin across the grass and then they just come up on the tri-oval and they collect other cars like at the back of the pack. Anyways, William Byron and Alex Bowman, they were both ahead at the moment of caution, which means that regardless of who won, it was going to be a Hendrick 1-2 finish guaranteed, which means that a Hendrick car won the Daytona 500 on their 40th anniversary day 2. It came with some controversy, of course, as you would expect when it comes to every Daytona 500. As you know, when it comes to every Hendrick win, because people just love to hate on Hendrick. I feel like I got some people saying that Hendrick caused the last wreck. Again, like the big one, I get it. That was like a bad push from Bowman into Byron. So the big one, I get it. But that last lap wreck, like that was not on Hendrick. I see some people blaming Bowman and Byron for that, but it was pretty clear that wreck on the last lap, or coming to the last lap, because they had not taken the white flag yet. Chastain did that to himself, trying to force his way through a gap. I've also seen some people saying that it's rigged for the 40th anniversary, that they waited too long to throw the caution. And look, this has nothing to do with Hendrick favoritism. You know, with the way that NASCAR, with how quickly NASCAR threw the caution, they were trying to force overtime. They were looking to force overtime. You can easily tell by how quickly they threw the caution. Of course, the race didn't go to overtime because the leader had already taken the white flag like a mere split second before the caution lights turned on. But yeah, NASCAR really wanted overtime. You look at that's always how NASCAR officiates the end of these races. Every time a spin of some sort happens, race control is always at the ready with those caution lights. The moment, and I know some people saying, oh, they have shown some faster reflexes. They have called a caution on moments like this, but like I said, split second decisions. It's like split second decisions. Sometimes the leader takes the white flag, or sometimes race control manages to get the caution lights turned on before the leader takes the white flag. Like it's split second decisions. It's a game of seconds, literally. And unfortunately, NASCAR came out on the losing end, which was honestly fine. I mean, I'm not really a fan of two races ending up under overtime, like, and still suffering from 2023 fatigue from overtime. A lot of overtime finishes that year. Or, it felt like it at least. But yeah, anyways, that's not the real controversy that I want to talk about. The real controversy comes with who actually won, because according to the NASCAR rules, they always use like the moment of caution to determine the winner. But with every single angle they provided us, it showed us that Alex Bowman was a nose ahead. But they still determined that William Byron was the winner. Speculation was that they used scoring loops to call the race, which, was pretty stupid. It literally contradicts the rule book. And other people have said the caution lights are always delayed when race control presses the button, which is like the most logical theory, but then it contradicts all of the other times NASCAR has used the moment the lights turned on to determine the winner. Eventually, NASCAR released. They did release the footage that they used, the angle that they used to show the caution lights, to show like the moment the caution lights came on, which was actually the moment the green lights turned off in that situation. So it looks like there was actually a delay. From my point of view, it looks like there was like a bit of a delay between the moment the green flag lights turned on and the caution lights turned on. But it looks like NASCAR used that as their cue to award the win to the 24, because based on the angle that they used, William Byron was barely a nose ahead of Alex Bowman when the caution lights, when the caution came out. That is when the green lights turned off and the caution lights turned on. So, again, it was a pretty, for a moment it looked shaky as hell. I mean, NASCAR finally, at the end they came forward, but for a moment it looked shaky as hell. And for a moment we thought that Bowman was robbed of a Daytona 500 win, but I mean, I'm so glad NASCAR, they actually, they eventually came clean. I know some people are going to disagree, but I mean, it's the fucking Daytona 500. If there is one race that race control cannot mess up, it's this one. I mean, they already arguably messed up the finish by throwing the caution so quickly. So if I was, personally, if I was race control, I would have let them race for at least half a lap after, the Chastain and Hendrick crash happened. because Cindric had crashed and he had huge damage from hitting the front stretch wall. So there is no way they let them race back to the line with that 2 cars sitting there. But then again, that's debatable because not every car on the track was racing on that lead pack. There were guys that were like pacing around, and it's very possible that with those guys sitting there, Cindric sitting like on the track, it's very possible that it would have ended up being a terrible look for NASCAR if one of those cars ended up like hitting Cindric at full speed. I don't even want to imagine what would have happened. So then again, it's very debatable. I know some people wanted them to race back to the line, which is pretty stupid. But at the same time, I agree that the caution came out too quickly. So in the end, I stand on like that middle ground that at least let them race for half a lap, at least until they reach the back stretch, and then throw the caution. Whoever is ahead at that point, they win. Anyways, regardless though, it's a Hendrick win, and it's a 1-2 finish with Byron winning and Bowman second. The 24 and the 48, the 2 winningest numbers in Hendrick history. I know the 5 car is like their flagship number, but the 24 and the 48 have been the more successful numbers, like number of wins, when you count the number of wins and championships, when you're taking into account those things. 24 and 48 have been the most successful numbers, and with the 24 car winning to start 2024, get those hashtags 24 in 24 ready, because William Byron is about to win that title that was supposed to be his in 2023. Of course, I'm making reference to the fact that Byron was the overall best driver in 2023, but because of the playoffs, they don't usually reward the best driver with the championship. It's anticlimactic for sure, a race ending under caution, especially Daytona 500 ending under caution. But again, a win is a win, and NASCAR, they gave us the reasoning as to why they gave Byron the win. It's a storybook ending for Hendrick as well. Another milestone win. Their 2 most winningest car numbers, 24 and 48, placing 1-2 and winning on the day of the 40th anniversary. And they also snapped their 10-year streak with a win in a 500, dating back to 2014 with Dale Earnhardt Jr. And fittingly enough, 2014 was the last time Hendrick did not start in the front row. Like from 2015 to 2023, like for those 9 years in between, the Hendrick cars, they dominated Daytona 500 qualifying, but they could never win the big race in that span. And now the 1 year they don't qualify front row, they actually win. And again, they make it a 1-2 finish with their 2 most successful numbers in team history. It's honestly just how funny how that works. Just it just worked out perfectly for them. Like seriously, how in the world does Hendrick just keep getting away with this? I don't even understand. But anyways, looking down through the field, you will see that there are a lot of stories in this finishing order. Christopher Bell finished 3rd as the highest finish in Toyota. Corey LaJoie in 4th, a great finish for him. Bubba Wallace in 5th. Bubba did not get enough fuel. Speaking of Bubba Wallace, his team did not get him enough fuel on that final stop, and he would have to make an extra pit stop with around 5 laps to go. But that big one that happened with 9 to go, and the fact that he avoided the big wreck, it saved him big time. He was able to pit under yellow and then be there at the end, fighting up there with the leaders in the top 10. He managed to salvage a 5th place finish, so great job for Bubba. Allmendinger finished 6th. He's gonna be running double duty. There's a couple of drivers that are gonna be running double duty, like after the 500. They're going to be jumping into the Xfinity cars immediately because the Xfinity race was going to be an hour before the 500, and we'll get to that later. John Hunter Nemechek 7th, another one of the double-duty drivers that I mentioned along with Allmendinger. He finished 7th. And his teammate at Legacy Motor Club, Eric Jones, finished in 8th. And then Noah Gragson at 9th was the highest finishing Ford. Who would have thought? 9th place finish for Gragson, and then 10th place for Briscoe, right now the top 10. Then Kyle Larson, he finishes 11th. He got some damage on the big one, but nothing too significant. He finishes 11th. Kyle Busch in 12th. Once again, 0 for 19 on Daytona 500 starts. Next year, 2025 is gonna be his 20th attempt, because you gotta remember, 2015 he qualified the car, he raced in the duels, but because of that broken leg from the Xfinity race the day prior, he was unable to compete on that main event that year. So next year is actually gonna be his 20th attempt, assuming nothing prevents him from competing. He finishes 12th this year. After looking pretty strong towards the end of the race, it looked like he could make something happen on that on those final 4 laps on the outside lane. But then when Chase Elliott got in front of him and Elliott got like contact with Christopher Bell, I believe that that got him loose, or it gave him some like front end damage that just killed all of the momentum of that 3rd lane outside, and it sent him and Kyle Busch backwards. Speaking of Chase Elliott, he finished 14th due to that damage, and also barely making it through the big one. If it wasn't for that damage or contact with Christopher Bell, I believe he would have had a shot. Him and Kyle Busch would have had a shot at there. Zane Smith, he finished 13th, 1 spot ahead of Chase Elliott. Great showing for the rookie. Daniel Hendrick finished 16th on his first Cup race. On his first race back since 2019 as a full-time Cup driver. I know he made a couple of Xfinity starts in between, but those were like, I know he made a couple of Cup starts. Excuse me. I know Daniel Hendrick made a couple of Cup starts in between, but this is like his first start since 2019 as a full-time Cup driver. That's what I'm trying to say. He finishes 16th after starting from the rear and having a very difficult speed weeks in general. Denny Hamlin 19th, David Reagan 20th due to being involved in that last lap wreck, as well as Ross Chastain and Austin Cindric. They finished 21st and 22nd respectively. Riley Hurst, another one of those guys who is going to be running double duty, finished 24th, had a pretty quiet day after looking pretty good in the duels. Josh Berry 25th, and Justin Haley in 26th. Justin Haley, he was running top 5 in stage 2, but he had to make an unscheduled pit stop due to a fuel pressure problem in stage 2. So because of that, he finished multiple laps down. I believe he finished like a lap or 2 down in 26. Anthony Alfredo in 27th. Jimmy Johnson 28th. Again, he got early involvement in the lap 6 wreck. He was able to make it to the end of the race, but he was multiple laps down, finished 28th. Then Blaney in 30th, Stenhouse 31st, Logano 32nd, Keselowski, Suarez 33rd, 34th. Guys that were involved in the big one. Michael McDowell in 36th. In the end, I don't even remember if McDowell got involved in the big one. I don't think he did. Let me review my notes here. Review notes for a moment. Okay, so McDowell was not involved in the big one. I believe he was actually multiple laps down. I knew he was multiple laps down, but I didn't think he was like too many laps down to the point that he couldn't overtake some of these guys for some easy points. He finished 36th, which is a damn shame, like I said. Oh, Austin Dillon in 37th. Another one of those guys that was involved in that early accident on lap 6. He was able to beat the DVP clock, but then he still had to go to the garage for another issue. It was a mechanical problem, I believe. He was like, last time I checked, I believe he finished like 50 or 60 something laps down. Again, just like Jimmy Johnson, his race ended the moment his chances for winning ended on lap 6. That's what I'm trying to say. And then Casgrala 38, Harrison Burton 39, Carson Hocevar 40th. Early DNFs from that early accident. So overall, some final thoughts on this race. I really loved Kevin Harvick in the booth. He played off of Mike Joy perfectly, and he managed to muffle Clint Bowyer's unnecessary color commentary, which was much needed. I always knew Harvick would be a great fit in the booth, but um, not only the Harvick's presence was, his insight was very welcome. He played off of Mike Joy perfectly, and the fact that Mike Joy looked like he had new life in the booth. I remember, speaking of that early accident, Mike Joy, that call was amazing. He said like, "Oh, crash!" It was like, that classic jump scare that you would get from Dale Jr. on NBC. Yeah, Mike Joy, he just called that first crash of the season perfectly. Okay, so as for the final grade, because I'm also gonna be trying to get into I'm gonna get into the groove of trying to grade these drivers, of grading these races like I usually do. For the final grade, I'm gonna give it a B plus. It would have been an A minus, but the anticlimactic ending, the race ending under caution knocked this grade down a bit. Again, I'm not blaming anyone for I'm not blaming anyone in particular for for the wreck. It's just the way that Daytona 500 finishes go. Just drivers being aggressive. I mean, I don't even blame Ross Chastain for doing that move he did. Like, he was going for the win, and he said it himself in his interview that he can go to sleep knowing that I took the white flag, making a move to win the 500, even if we didn't win. Like, that's what it's all about. You either win or you crash trying to make a move for the win. I really love that mentality right there. And anyways, driver of the day, because I'm also going to be doing this in 2024 like I have been doing for the past couple of seasons. I'm going to go with William Byron, because the winner of the biggest race of the season will always be driver of the day in my book. So anyways, that's it for the Cup race. We still have the Xfinity race left to cover, so let's get into that immediately. Like I said, the Xfinity race started about an hour after the Cup race ended. So the fact that most of the crew members, more specifically the crew members of the 8 car of Sammy Smith, I know the broadcast booth, they made like they made mention of that. The crew members, because they had to work for do pit crew service for the number 8 car of Sammy Smith. Since they won, they were since they were the winning pit crew, part of the 2014 that won the Daytona 500 with William Byron. They celebrated, they took their pictures, and then when the Xfinity race started, they went straight to work on that car. Like, it's honestly so badass. It's like, yeah, let's get some beers, but let's not get too crazy because we still got work to do. Oh my gosh. The only thing that would have made this better is if Sammy Smith actually won. Spoiler alert, he did not, unfortunately, but it would have been pretty funny it would have been pretty awesome if Sammy Smith won, just because I wanted to see how those 24 crew guys would celebrate having swept the weekend on their end. So anyways, like I said, for the Xfinity race, RCR, they swept the front row. Jesse Love, Austin Hill, other drivers notable qualifiers. AJ Allmendinger third, Colleague Racing again. They use ECR engines, the Childress power, and they have the alliance with Childress. So Colleague is also pretty fast on super speedways, with Shane Van Gisbergen also qualifying 5th as well in his Xfinity debut, no less. Parker Kligerman, another RCR allied car with a Big Machine Racing team, which I have a lot of expectations for, qualifies 4th. Then Justin Allgaier in 6th, Jeremy Clemens 7th. John Hunter Nemechek now running a part-time schedule, but still, scheduled to run then the 10 races in the number 20 Xfinity car, along with Eric Almirola. He's going to be running 8th. Then Parker Retzlaff 9th, Anthony Alfredo 10th, Riley Hurst running double duty in 11th, Patrick Emmerling, great qualifying effort now with the SS Greenlight Racing team in 13th, Sheldon Creed driving for Joe Gibbs Racing now in 14th, Cole Custer 17th, Daniel Suarez driving the 14 for SS Greenlight, the second SS Greenlight car that is in an alliance with Colic Racing for this one race. He's qualifying 18th. Chandler Smith 19th. Josh Williams 21st. Then Garrett Smithley, Leland Honeyman with that young motorsports team. They actually managed to qualify on time, which I was honestly surprised. Kyle Weatherman 25th. Daniel Dye driving the 10 for Colic Racing, which is now a part-time entry. He's qualifying 26th. Jordan Anderson 29th, driving a third Jordan Anderson Racing entry. He's a team owner. He's not gonna have Larry Mack Reynolds as his crew chief, unfortunately, because Larry Mack had to work as do commentating for the Daytona 500, unfortunately. So he was unable to be present atop the booth for him. And then for the first time in NASCAR history, in Xfinity Series history, two women will be on the same race, because Hailie Deegan qualified 28th and Natalie Decker, she qualified 30th. They both made the race. They both qualified on time. Ryan Sieg also qualified 31st in what was a very, very rough start of the season for RSS Racing, because Ryan Sieg qualified 31st and then Blaine Perkins 34th. And then RSS Racing, they entered 4 cars, but CJ McLaughlin and Kyle Sieg, they failed to qualify. So, and their highest qualifying car was 31st. So, really rough for the RSS Racing team. Sage Karam, 32nd. Frankie Muniz making his Xfinity debut. ARCA driver qualified 37th. And BJ McLeod in 38th, running out the field. Aside from McLaughlin and Kyle Sieg, the other biggest notable driver that failed to qualify was David Starr. He had originally qualified on time in 29th, but his time was disallowed after failing a post-qualifying inspection due to an issue with the track bar. And with no owner points to fall back on, the 66 car did not qualify. He had originally qualified 29th. He got qualified on time. But his spot was given to Dawson Cram instead, who qualified 35th on the number 4 car. He had originally DNQ'd, but with David Starr failing, the 66 car failing inspection, they disqualified his time and they gave it to Dawson Cram for him to make the field. Really rough, especially since this is the same team that Carl Long owns, and Carl Long's history with NASCAR is not really pretty, so NASCAR just has it out for the guy. Just poor Carl Long, man. Anyways, as soon as the Cup race ends, less than an hour later, like I said, Xfinity race is underway. Jesse Love and Austin Hill, they immediately go to work, linking up on the outside lane and getting the lead as the field goes single file for the opening 20 laps, I believe. Some moves are made through the field, but nothing significant. Again, like I also mentioned, there were some drivers that were running double duty, Daytona 500 and also the Xfinity race. The moment the Daytona 500 ended, these guys just jump into the Xfinity car. Those 5 drivers were AJ Allmendinger, Riley Herbst, Daniel Suarez, John Hunter Nemechek, and Anthony Alfredo. Which means that those guys would have run up to 800 miles by the end of the day. Suarez was not going to be one of them, though. Because towards the end of stage 1, as the action was starting to pick up, Suarez checked up due to a stack up in front of him. This causes Jeremy Clements to put him in the wall, to bump him, put him in the wall. Suarez spins and collects Sam Mayer, who hits the wall pretty hard. And then, as he comes back up to the track, Hailie Deegan is unable to avoid him, and she also gets caught up in it. And Kyle Weatherman trying to avoid Hailie Deegan as well as Sam Mayer crashing in front of it. And Kyle Weatherman trying to avoid Hailie Deegan and also Sam Mayer. He eventually runs out of room and he also crashes. And I'm just going to say this. because I'm just gonna ask this because this is relevant. Like, how in the world does Hailie Deegan keep getting caught up in these wrecks? Like, I get it. She's not an elite driver or anything. She's far from that. But, can we all agree that, she has been unlucky as hell, like being caught up at the wrong place and the wrong time a lot? It always seems like it doesn't matter where she is running. Even the few times she has been running up front. I remember the truck series race at Gateway last year when she was running in the top 10. She got spun out and crashed out of the top 10 at Gateway. One of the few times where she was actually running in the top 10. So it doesn't matter if she's running like in the front or in the back. It doesn't really matter. She's always like a crash magnet. She always finds herself at the wrong place at the wrong time. And again, like at this point, people are tired of giving, Hailie Deegan excuses, making excuses for her. That's a valid point. At some point, she's got to put up some results. But, some stuff you just cannot blame her for. There's still some stuff you just cannot blame him for. Anyways, several of the leaders pit for fuel and tires. Most of those guys are like Xfinity regulars that forfeit stage points for, better strategy for later in the stage. This is what we in the NASCAR industry call splitting the stages. You forego stage points on one stage just to get stage points in the other. Typical strategy on some tracks. So Jesse Love, Austin Hill, Parker Kligerman, Anthony Alfredo, they are among those who stay out. John Hunter Nemechek, Jeb Burton, Sheldon Creed, Ryan Truex, Parker Retzlaff, BJ McLeod, Frankie Muniz. A handful of drivers stayed out. Stage 1 ends on a one-lap shootout with Austin Hill racing Jesse Love to the line, but with help from the side draft. Love edges him out by a splitter and 3/1000ths of a second to win the stage. Austin Hill in second, Kligerman, Alfredo, Jeb Burton, Sheldon Creed, John Hunter, Allmendinger, Allgaier, and Ryan Truex round out the top 10. Stage 2, and then Stage 2 immediately begins. Of course, the guys that did not pit during the first caution, they pit during the stage break. So Jesse Love, Austin Hill, those guys are going to be starting mid-pack. Stage 2, they go 3 wide, racing immediately to start the stage. And just like what happened in the 500 when they went 3 wide for the first time in the race, because this is the first time in the race they went 3 wide in the Xfinity race, of course, they ended up wrecking on the backstretch. A push from John Hunter Nemechek to Jesse Love, it sets off a chain reaction that involves several strong cars, among those being Shane Van Gisbergen, Allmendinger, Austin Hill, Parker Kligerman, Sammy Smith, Josh Williams, Daniel Dye, Anthony Alfredo, and also Frankie Muniz involved. So for a 10-car crash, there wasn't not really that much carnage. Like most of the guys, like Austin Hill, Allmendinger, Allgaier, those guys just basically spun out. There wasn't that much damage. No cars with significant damage. Only Frankie Muniz and Josh Williams were the drivers who DNF'd. So there's still, some of these guys may be down, but they're not out of it yet. They just suffer a hiccup. And on the ensuing restart, they still go 3 wide. It's like they just never learned. But then again, Xfinity, they always produces, it's known for producing the best racing. Better racing than Cup in most weekends. So on the ensuing restart, they still go 3 wide. And this time, the Stewart-Haas Racing teammates of Cole Custer and Riley Herbst, they split Justin Allgaier down the middle. Allgaier, of course, he stays in the draft as the third lane forms. The third lane forms in the middle to help him not lose the draft. Cole Custer then moves up to link up with his teammate, and they run 1-2 for a while, at least until Justin Allgaier makes contact trying to side draft Cole Custer and spins himself on the backstretch. He doesn't make contact with anything, so it ends up being a pretty good save and he's able to move on. And then on the next restart, we don't even get 3 laps of green flag racing before another caution comes out for, this time, John Hunter Nemechek spinning on the tri-oval due to a flat left rear tire. Josh Bilicki also spins behind him after slowing down and getting hit from behind by Dawson Cram. And because he spun on the grass and the grass is still wet due to the rain, he gets some front end damage. Not enough to, blow the radiator, so he is able to continue on, but he still has to pit for repairs. And just like that, because of all of these accidents, we had 3 cautions for accidents in stage 2. By the time the green flag waves for the end of the stage, it's only a 3-lap shootout, just like that. And it's Austin Hill who came back with all of this carnage, with all of these cautions ensuing. Austin Hill is able to take advantage of the short runs to pick up some positions and put himself in prime position to win stage 2 after holding off his former teammate turned rival Sheldon Creed, as well as Sammy Smith, who finishes second. Creed has to settle for third. Cole Custer hangs on for fourth. Ryan Sieg fifth. And then Ryan Truex, Riley Herbst, Allgaier, Allmendinger, and Brandon Jones round out the top 10. Then on pit road for the stage break, everyone pits. Only Sammy Smith, Jesse Love, Ryan Ellis, and Sheldon Creed stay out. Austin Hill overshoots his pit stall. More issues for Austin Hill. He overshoots his pit stall and he loses a ton of time. And he also gets caught speeding by a long shot. I'm pretty sure he was doing 100 miles per hour down pit road on third gear. So, anyways, just like the start of stage 2, the field gets very racy to start stage 3. The only difference is that, they don't go like 3 wide action. There's no 3 wide action from the jump. We do get some 3 wide action later on, but to start stage 3, they don't go 3 wide. Like the third line doesn't immediately form. Apparently, this guy's learned it's not quite the time yet. The lead does become a revolving door, though. Again, like I said, it was a very active stage 3. The lead changes hands a lot of times, from Jesse Love to Sammy Smith to AJ Allmendinger to Riley Herbst, back to Sammy Smith, with Sheldon Creed and Parker Retzlaff also in the mix. They were pretty much in the mix for the entire third stage. Eventually, the action is interrupted by green flag pit stops, and these pit stops actually happen with 40 laps to go, which is pretty interesting because it's pretty close to the fuel window. Fuel window was going to be pretty tight if the race went into overtime. But then again, thankfully there was no overtime. But still, I was a bit perplexed. I thought they were going to wait until at the very least like 30 to go to do their green flag pit stops, but it looks like some drivers, they wanted to pit earlier, and that forced the hand of other drivers, and it just snowballed from there. I don't know. Again, just like what happened in the final stage on the Cup race, the field was split up into small groups. The first group was the RCR cars and Parker Kligerman, so Jesse Love, Austin Hill, and Kligerman. Then the second group, who pitted like the very next lap, the colleague cars, or at least the ones that are still left on the race, so Allmendinger, Daniel Dye, Van Gisbergen, as well as Sammy Smith, Jordan Anderson, and Jeremy Clemens, they pitted. Then group 3, I believe that was the bigger group. I don't know, it could have been either them or group 2, but Justin Allgaier, Jeb Burden, Parker Retzlaff, I believe Brandon Jones was in that group too, BJ McLeod, Sage Karen, Brennan Poole, they were part of the group of that group who pitted. Then and the next lap, the Stewart House Racing cars, the duo of Herbst and Custer, along with Ryan Sieg, John Hunter, and Chandler Smith, they pit. And then in group 5, the remaining Toyotas of Ryan Truex and Sheldon Creed. So in the end, the cycle is not over yet because there's still like a couple of cars left to pit. Garrett Smithley, Ryan Ellis, and Natalie Decker, who actually assumes the lead. Um, Ellis event and she manages to get the lead for like 7 laps. She leads the field for 7 laps. Eventually loses the Eventually, she loses the draft and is sent to like the back of the pack as Ryan Ellis does get the lead for a couple of laps, while the other groups they cycle back and they merge together, and they all start racing 3 wide, knowing that this battle could very well be for the win, with Ryan Sieg and Riley Herbst and Austin Hill leading all 3 lanes. Herbst on the outside, Ryan Sieg in the middle lane, Austin Hill on the inside lane. It's just some really amazing 3 wide racing. So what ensues is some amazing racing for the win, or at the very least, because those guys, the top 3 of Smithley, Natalie Decker, and Ryan Ellis, you knew they weren't gonna make it in on fuel. There was just no way, and even if they did, and even if they save fuel, like we saw what happened with David Reagan and Ryan Preece when they tried to do that in stage 1. They got overtaken by the field. They were getting on them like 5 seconds lap. This wasn't gonna happen. None of those 3 guys were gonna win the race. As much of a feel good story as it was for them. But I still wanted this, to be at the finish, to go to the finish, because of just the amazing battle that was going on behind them between Austin Hill, Riley Herbst, Ryan Sieg, commanding all three lanes. Unfortunately, the caution comes out due to Jeff Burton getting spun out after throwing a bad block in front of Shane Van Gisbergen entering the tri-oval. SVG also spun out in the middle of that. Van Gisbergen already getting some NASCAR action. And just as intended, during this caution, Decker, Smithley, Ryan Ellis, they pitted. And this goes right in line with what they were trying to do with their strategy, because they didn't want to pit under green, so they managed to pit under yellow and stay in the draft. Even if they are sent to the back, but at least they stay in the draft. Parker Retzlaff, SVG, Jesse Love, Clements, and McLeod also pit to top off fuel. And this hands the lead over to Ryan Sieg. Ryan Ellis and Natalie Decker, unfortunately, they get penalized for improper entry on pit road, whatever that means. I don't know if it's like a commitment line violation or something like that. I don't know, but it's still a big yikes after the amazing strategy that they played. And Austin Hill also has to pit for a vibration, because it turns out that he had a flat tire. So add that to the list of issues that Austin Hill has to overcome, between the speeding penalty and the early crash, being involved in the early crash in stage 2. Now he also had to, beat a flat tire now. So anyways, the restart, we get another caution almost immediately when Clemens tries to squeeze in front of Parker Retzlaff on the backstretch. He gets spun out. Garrett Smithley, Leland Honeyman are collected. And for the second straight caution, for the second straight time, Van Gisbergen strikes again, spinning out Jeb Burton, who was trying to, he was slowing down to avoid the wreck in front of him. SVG just ran into the back of him for the second time of the race, like, oh, I just yawned right there. It's almost 5 a.m. I'm not getting any sleep. I'm not getting any sleep, by the way, but for the second straight caution, Van Gisbergen just hit Jeb Burton from behind. This guy is truly a NASCAR driver. He spun a guy for 8th, and then he just ran into a guy because he couldn't slow down in time during a caution. This guy is already a NASCAR driver. I don't care what anyone says. Shane Van Gisbergen is a NASCAR driver now. he already got his initiation. This entire weekend served as an initiation for him. Anyways, this leads over to another restart. And unfortunately on that restart, Riley Herbst gets penalized for laying back on the restart. It was pretty obvious. And he had to serve a pass-through penalty, or he would have served that pass-through penalty. If the caution did not come out. For Sage Karam, pushing Cole Custer into the wall, which triggered another multi-car crash, collecting Allgaier, who goes for a wild ride, Brennan Poole, also involved in it, and Daniel Dye, who got stuck in the wet grass. And this leads into yet another restart with 3 laps to go. And at this point I was thinking, man, Xfinity has had some really fun racing, but this late racing has been like very suspect, not gonna lie. It's becoming very like Truck Series 2.0 at this point. You guys have to chill. Like the racing overall was amazing, but towards the end of stage 3 it felt like there were some points where it was like, this race feels like, a bit caution filled. But despite the cautions, Xfinity was a pretty good race. Don't let the amount of cautions fool you. The race was good. Average green flag run, a pretty low, a little bit low for my liking, but still, it made up for it in action. So anyways, the restart with 3 to go is actually the final restart of the race. Like I said earlier, the race does not go into overtime. Jordan Anderson and Chandler Smith in the front row fighting for the win. But Austin Hill, who lined up in as the second car on the outside lane, I believe, behind Jordan Anderson. I don't know. He was like, I know he was in the second row. I don't know if he was inside or outside, but Austin Hill had already made his way back into the top 5 for that final caution, and he just made his move. Or actually, he made 2 moves. One to pass Chandler Smith for second, and then the other to pass Jordan Anderson for the lead. Or was it the other way around? I don't know, but I know he went from third. The point is, he went from third to first with 2 laps to go. And then, coming to the white flag, Sheldon Creed moved up to second, and he was in prime position to do the funniest thing ever. With Andy Petrie in the booth, no less. The same guy that, for that Martinsville move, he was very vocal against what he did at Martinsville. This was Sheldon Creed's chance to do like the funniest thing ever, one of the most, and do like one of the most memorable, pull off one of the most memorable moments of the 2024 season on week number 1. He was in prime position to do that, but then a wreck happened behind them off turn 2. Ryan Six spinning, collecting Sammy Smith, and I believe Parker Kligerman was collecting that too. And Sheldon Creed thought the caution would come out. He takes his foot off the gas just for a moment. Or I don't know. He lost speed compared to the leader. The graphics showed, on that last lap, the graphics showed that Creed was running like 170s when Hill was running like in the 180s. So I'm pretty sure that, Creed thought that the caution was going to come out. But, Austin Hill just kept his foot on the gas. And because of that, Hill has really a smooth sailing, and because of this, he lets Hill get away from him en route to his 3rd straight season opening win at Daytona. Even after all he had to go through, from an early crash on stage 2, to a flat tire, to a speeding penalty, Austin Hill still came back to complete the Daytona season opening three-peat. And just like in the last 2 years, a last lap crash at Daytona in February ends the race with an Austin Hill win. Like for the third straight year, a crash happens on the last lap and Austin Hill ends up winning the season opening race at Daytona. Like the script is always the same. Austin Hill is inevitable. Guys, Austin Hill is inevitable. Only this time, the only difference this year was that the caution did not come out and they let them race back to the line. And you already know people are pissed because of the way NASCAR, they officiated the last lap of the 500 or how quickly they threw the caution. Even if we're being honest, their reasoning to throw the caution at the Cup race was pretty legit, in my opinion. But you still know, because it's NASCAR and, because people are reaching to find any semblance of a conspiracy theory to make it seem like NASCAR is rigged for, Hendrick Motorsports. I do agree NASCAR was, inconsistent compared to how they officiated the Daytona 500. Especially since the cars that were wrecking, they were in the racing surface. But then again, I digress. The reasoning to throw the caution at the Cup race was legit. But it just contradicts with the way that they officiated at the beginning of their Xfinity race. But hey, by letting the Xfinity race go under green, at least they led like one of the 3 races of this weekend and under green, because if you remember, the truck race ended under caution, the Daytona 500 ended under caution. At least the Xfinity race did not end under caution. Just saying. So anyways, I still wonder what the explanations will be now, because at face value, again, it looks like another inconsistent moment of NASCAR officiating, and as far as I know, NASCAR has not released a statement regarding that, the finish of the Xfinity race. But then again, I'm not gonna look into it a lot, because like I said, NASCAR is just inconsistent with their own ruling. They don't even know when to throw the caution at these times. Anyways, Austin Hill, 3 straight Xfinity Daytona wins in, season opening Daytona wins, Daytona February wins, you know what I mean. It's the first time a driver has done that since Tony Stewart won 4 in a row from 2008 to 2011. Pretty awesome, I gotta say. Sheldon Creed, again, for the 8th time in his Xfinity career, he finishes 2nd. And he still is looking for his first career win, which I believe is going to happen this year. But man, every second place finish is just more. It's filled with a lot of heartbreak when you look at it. Parker Retzlaff finished 3rd. Great start to his season, as well as for Jordan Anderson. Shane Van Gisbergen might have murdered the hell out of Jeff Burton, but at least Jordan Anderson Racing, they came out with a pair of top 5s. They came out pretty good in the end. Chandler Smith in 5th. So the 2 Gibbs cars finished 2nd and 5th. Riley Herbst, he managed to rebound from his penalty. He served it under yellow, like I said, because of the caution coming out. On the lap he was supposed to serve his penalty. He managed to serve it under yellow. He came back to finish 6th, but he could have very well been fighting for the win with Austin Hill, if we're being honest. I feel like Riley Herbst was the only guy down the stretch that could have given Austin Hill a real challenge for the win, but it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate that he had to go with that he had to get a late race penalty, because he was doing so well. John Hunter Nemechek finishes 7th, Justin Allgaier 8th, Brandon Jones 9th, and Allmendinger 10th, rounding out the top 10. Ryan Ellis finished 11th. He, as well as Natalie Decker, managed to get quite some screen time. Natalie Decker finished 18th, which is by far, I do believe it's by far her best career Xfinity win. I might have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure it's her best career Xfinity win. It's not best career Xfinity win. I mean, that 18th place feels like a win for her, because, you don't usually see Natalie Decker running in the top 20 even. But yeah, I was honestly really surprised by how she kept the car clean, and she actually managed to lead laps to give her that sponsor of her some screen time. So anyways, let's see. Shane Van Gisbergen finished 12th. I think it's his Xfinity debut after finishing with a pretty banged up car. Cole Custer 13th after getting involved in a late race wreck. Let's see here. Blaine Perkins 14th. BJ McLeod 15th. Shout out to BJ McLeod, man. Garrett Smithley 16th. Just like Ryan Ellis and Natalie Decker. That strategy really helped him a lot. Really helped them, Pretty interesting strategy. He managed to get a 16th place finish out of it. Okay, I got it here. Yes, Natalie Decker finished 18th. This is her best career Xfinity finish so far. Good for her, like I said. A career day for her. She definitely did better than Hailie Deegan. just throwing that out there. But anyways, Patrick Ermeling 17th. Brennan Poole 19th. Jesse Love, the guy who started on the pole, 20th. Ryan Sieg 22nd. Sammy Smith 23rd. Parker Kligerman 25th. Those guys got involved on that wreck on the last lap. Jeff Burton 26th after a very difficult day, courtesy of Shane Van Gisbergen. Daniel Dye 27th. Sage Karen 28th. Jeremy Clements 29th. Dan Leland Honeyman in 30th. Those guys that were involved like in late race wrecks. Frankie Mir is 33rd, Josh Williams 34th. They were involved in that early wreck on stage 2. I do believe they were the only 2 casualties of that wreck. Yeah, they were the only 2 DNFs of that 10-car wreck in stage 2. And then Daniel Suarez, Sam Mayer, Haley Deegan, Kyle Weatherman, 35th, 36th, 37th, 38th, respectively, after getting involved in that early wreck on stage 1. So anyways, some final thoughts on this race. The racing was great, despite the high number of cautions. It did not feel like the truck race on Friday at all. There was some green flag action. I know the average green flag run, I don't know if it was like 10 laps. It could have been. Even if it may not have been. Even if it wasn't though, the quality of the racing we saw was just amazing. The finish was a bit anticlimactic as always, but at least they let them race back to the line. And at the very least, it, like I said, it ended on the green, like the truck race or the cup race. Natalie Decker is slowly rebuilding her stock, which is something I never thought I would say. And finally, Austin Hill is inevitable. Dreaded, round-fronted, but destiny arrives all the same. Austin Hill is inevitable, guys. I'm already penciled. I can already feel it. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm already calling it now. He's gonna win next week at Atlanta, because that's right. We have 2 super speedway races to start the season, and then after that we get a 2-month break from super speedway racing, and then we go to Talladega. Like, why? We have 3 super speedway races in the first 10 races. Like, who thought it was a good idea to stack so many super speedway races together? Who thought it was a good idea, for real? But anyways, I mean, it's not even gonna be less than a week. As a matter of fact, like, it's Wednesday morning now, and the doubleheader, it's going to be on Trucks Xfinity doubleheader on Saturday. Yeah, this is... it's only a couple of days, man. So I guess I don't have any topics right now. I know some people have asked me if I'm going to be doing some regular uploads. I'm going to be doing them. I'm just focusing on regular, like, live streams right now, race reviews, and doing live streams right now. Just because I want to get back into the groove of things. Once I get back into a groove of things and I got my view count up, gotten a few more subscribers, I'm gonna consider branching out, like doing some other regular upload videos. And I got a lot of fun topics to make. Most of those topics, I feel like they will be better saved for an off season when there's nothing left to do. But I mean, I don't do anything on the off season. I just take a break from NASCAR as a whole mostly. But anyways, just gonna leave this out here. Just gonna end the stream here. Pretty nice podcast length stream, even though this is not really a podcast. But anyways, see you next video. Peace out.